What's going on, guys, and welcome to my review of Argylle, the latest spy action thriller from director Matthew Vaughn, a director that I highly respect. Thank you so much, as always, for clicking here. I really do appreciate it. So, Argylle is a film that I wasn't quite sure of. I started hearing things about it, and not in a good way, really bad things. But after watching it, the quote, the Black Eyed Peas, where's the love? Where's the love? Seriously. Now, granted, I do get its problems, but I've always been more lenient. So essentially, in the film, you have this reclusive author who writes all these action spy thriller books, and she essentially gets drawn into the real world of spies and espionage after she realizes that her upcoming book mirrors real life events. So again, this is a film that I wasn't quite sure of, but whenever I heard the name Matthew Vaughn, who is directing this, who did Kingsman, the first Kick-Ass, and the first one I ever seen, which was X-Men First Class, which was astonishing, I really wanted to check this thing out. But then I started listening to the bad reviews and every negative aspect, but I never let that stop me. But I never let anything bad, come out from any reviews, keep me from seeing anything, no matter how bad they claim it is. But really, I don't see as much hate in this as it's getting. Of course, again, I've always been lenient. I've always been more lenient than others. Anybody who knows me will tell you that. But I do see its problems. I do see its flaws. There are certain flaws of my own, not to the extent that everybody else says. I do see some flaws in it. But before I get into any of that, let's start off with the positives. I do gotta say, you got a solid cast. You got Sam Rockwell, who basically plays the guy that picks the main character up, of Bryce Dallas Howard, who is also really fantastic in the film. Sam Rockwell, he's an actor that the only other thing I've seen him in really was Cowboys and Aliens and Iron Man 2, and I thought he did a really good job in Argylle. There was certain moments to where I kind of laughed, and he kind of gave out a certain Owen Wilson vibe, if I'm being honest here. I thought he did a really good job. He's one of those characters that you can kind of relate to. And like I said, I've got certain chuckles out of him that I really did enjoy. Bryce Dallas Howard was phenomenal. I thought she did really good as the main character, as this novelist that, as the film proceeds, I can't tell you that much for those of you who actually wants to give this a try. I can't tell you much, but there are certain things that unfold that involves her character that was pretty surprising, and I really did enjoy that. You got Bryan Cranston in here, who plays the main villain. It's not the first time he's played a villain. May I refer you to the 2013 remake of Total Recall. I thought he did a really good job in the film. He showed that kind of stereotyped James Bond type villain. Like every time he shows up, you can hear the music in the background, that weird theme. And it may sound sort of cheesy to most, but I thought it kind of worked for the campiness and the cheesiness that they were going in the film. Catherine O'Hara, which I was surprised as soon as she popped up in the trailers. I was like, dang, I'm glad that woman's still doing stuff. The mother from Home Alone and Home Alone 2. I thought she was really fantastic. And last but not least, Samuel L. Jackson pops up. So yeah, you got a really good solid cast, and I really did enjoy, all the performances and the hard work that was put into it by everybody. The action was pretty solid. Now, I do got a little bit of gripe with that, which I'll get into later, but I thought the action was pretty solid. It was a nice, solid pace, especially when the action was going on. The visualization of it all that Matthew Vaughn usually puts in his films was done really well. I did really enjoy the aspect of just how it looked and all the fighting scenes, and there was something that was done visually in the third act that I really did appreciate, that Matthew Vaughn usually always fits in just about every single one of his movies, excluding Kick-Ass. But especially with the Kingsman movies, if you ever seen any of those, if you've seen those, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But I really did enjoy the visualization of it all, and I thought it was done really well. There was certain tense-filled, built-up moments that I really did appreciate, that it really gets you on the edge of your seat, to me. And one aspect of that I kind of did enjoy as well, that they did in another movie, which was The Lost City, starring Sandra Bullock. Only, I liked it the way they did in this, with the whole novelist being roped into all this spy stuff. That's not necessarily what The Lost City was, but it's kind of similar because Sandy B was a writer in that, and she got tangled into all the other mess with Daniel Radcliffe's character in that film. The same with Bryce Dallas Howard's character, to where she's a novelist, and then you find out that none of that stuff is real, and then she gets roped into the actual thing. I actually did like that, and with this, it's more my speed because it's got more action. The Lost City sort of played it off as more of a romance type thriller, but with this, it was more my speed because I'm not that much into that romance stuff. I'm sorry for comparing it to The Lost City, but it does kind of resemble it a little bit. But with Argylle, it's more my speed because it's got more action and it was more intriguing. Despite what all the negative things that people were saying about it, Argylle is more my speed than Lost City. So I just had to throw that out. Forgive me. This was a really fun movie. I really didn't get the hate. But on to my own gripes, starting with the mixed. Going back to the action sequences. Now, comparing to Kingsman, there's certain aspects to the action in this that I did find enjoyable, but because of the rating, now keep in mind, this is the first movie that Matthew Vaughn has directed since X-Men First Class that was PG-13. Every single thing else that he's done past X-Men First Class up until now has been rated R. But you could really tell that they've really cut down on a lot of the stuff. And because of that, it kind of made some of the action sequences, not all of them, now this is why this is in the mixed, but not all of them, kind of different than Kingsman. The reason why Kingsman worked is because it held nothing back. It was solid R, and it didn't feel like it was holding anything back. In Argylle, it kind of does. There were certain scenes to where the action really worked, but the others you could really tell that the rating kicked in. And I kind of wish that this was rated R, and it probably would have done a little bit better. But again, I didn't have full complaints about the action. There was certain action sequences that I really enjoyed, but there was certain other ones to where you could really tell that the rating was like handcuffing it and just pulling it back like a prisoner.
Fuck you!
And I don't know if that was Matthew Vaughn's choice or the studio's. Like I said, he hadn't directed a PG-13 type movie since X-Men First Class back in 2011. So, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. But the action sequences was done really well. It's just that little rating constraint, I think, just held it back a lot. If it was rated R, then this wouldn't even be mentioned in the mixed. Now, moving on to my negatives. As far as everybody else is concerned, like as far as everybody else's gripes and complaints about it, there is one that where I do kind of agree. There's a thing that they do with the story that doesn't quite pan out. As the movie proceeds and all the twists and turns happens, there's a means to an end that needs to happen, and I feel like that it didn't quite make it in this. It didn't quite live up to expectations in terms of where it was going and the point it was trying to make. Now, some might argue that that has a lot to do with the length on how long this movie is. It clocks in about 2 hours and 20 minutes. But I don't really buy that. There's been other movies that's been proven that long that was great. But I think it's just the way they handled it, which has a lot to do with the pacing and some of the scenes and sluggish, which I'll get into here in a minute, but it's just the way they handle things and just the point that they're trying to get across just doesn't come off as much as they would hoped, as much as I would have hoped. I do understand that. There's certain scenes that kind of dragged out a little bit, that kind of dragged its feet a little bit. It just felt a little sluggish. Certain times where I think the film could have benefited a little bit more with more action. But setting that all aside, I really enjoyed this movie. Again, I've always been one of those more lenient types. That's just me. That's always been me. And always will be me until my deathbed. But I really did enjoy this movie. Argylle was, despite its flaws, really enjoyable. To me. And just some friendly piece of advice before I rate this thing. One thing I've noticed a lot here lately is people seem to hang on other people's words like an anchor. And that's really not a good thing. I know it's instinct and it's in our nature most of the time, but it's just a friendly piece of advice. You really shouldn't believe everything you hear online. No matter how bad you hear that a movie is, you may enjoy it yourself. I always say be your own critic. That's my motto. Be your own critic. I never, no matter how bad a movie has come off from other people, no matter how bad of things I hear from it, I never let that stop me. Unless I know for sure it's a genre that I don't like, and I know for sure it's something that I would not enjoy. If it's something that I have watched that's similar to something that's coming out that's getting bad reviews, that's different. I never let that stop me. Be your own critic. That's the only advice I could give you. You may surprise yourself. People surprise themselves every day. I've surprised myself a few times in my life as well, so I'm no stranger to that. Every now and then I will hang on to other people's words. I'll take their advice, but you really shouldn't. You really shouldn't hang on my word either. I'm including myself as well. Film is subjective, but with Argylle, no matter how many bad things I heard about it, and there's a lot, I still enjoyed it. I was my own critic, though. The film was fun enough. The film was entertaining. It was a happy accident. Now, everything I just said, take that with a grain of salt. It's your choice. It's your decision. Nobody should tell you what to do. Just some friendly advice here. So, Argylle, what was your thoughts on this? Have you seen it yet? Are you a fan of this? Are you a fan of the genre in general? Did you find any enjoyment out of this film whatsoever? Or were you one of those that just didn't care, that just found it to be real flat, just flabbergasted on how bad it was, and just didn't care for it at all? Leave me your comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this. I really do appreciate it. As always, like, subscribe, comment, and share. Make sure to click that bell icon so you don't miss a thing. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.